Hey guys, Mike with iReviewGear.com, and I want to go over just the basics of reloading. Now, I'm not an expert reloader by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been doing quite a bit lately and really got a couple guns dialed in with a great load that I like. So here's my reloading station. I'm just going to kind of look at each component real quick, and then we're going to go through some reloading. On the far right over there, that is my powder dispenser. Right here in the center, obviously, my one-stage RCB press. Right here, you can see my powder measurer. Even though I run it through that machine, I then verify the weight on the powder measurer. Over here, I've got my caliper, so I can make sure the bullets are the right, the cases are the right length, and then the overall length is right when I'm done. And then here's a set of dies for my 6mm that we're going to be reloading today. Got my powder that I'm using for today. Got right back in the back there is my primer seating device. And I've got some back there, the case lube that you'll have to have. It's about everything you'll need. I've also over here got a case trimmer to get those cases to the right length. And then down on the ground there I have got my tumbler, which you probably need to get your brass all cleaned up in the first place. So there's the station. We're going to be using most of these devices. Show you the basics of setting one up and going through reloading one round. We'll get started in just a minute. Okay guys, Mike, iReviewGear.com. We're ready for the first step of reloading. I showed you all the parts of reloading. Now I've got my cases here. 6mm Remington. I've got them cleaned in my tumbler. I sprayed them with lube a minute ago down the neck a little bit just to get them good and lubed up and slick so they'll work in this machine. The next thing we're going to do is put the first die on, which is a sizing die and removes the primer. And also you'll note I've got my shell holder in place. You can see my shell holder right here, which grabs the bottom of the case. And I've got the right shell holder for the 6mm Remington, and I've got it in place. So, shell holder in place, die set on the top. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see exactly what we do. Okay, I'm zoomed in so you can see this first die that I've got just setting in top of my press. What you want to do is bring the arm all the way down, so the shell holder and the arm's all the way to the top, and just slowly screw this down until it touches. It's easy, this first step, to resize and remove the primer. Screwing it down and wham, it's hit. That's all you need to do. Screw this down now and tighten it up just a little bit. And if you wanted, I don't know why exactly you would need to, but you can tighten this with a set screw, so that's always the right spot. But that's a pretty easy step to get that done. Okay, so we've got step one done with that die set, the die that resizes and removes the primer. Now I just stick the case in to the shell holder, fits in there easy. It's lubed. Take it down. You can feel right here punching out the primer and resizing. On the way up it resizes the neck, and there I have a case ready to go. Cleaned, deprimed, now on to the next phase. Okay guys, Mike again. Next we're going to put the primer in. RCBS priming tool, just a hand priming tool. Took the shell holder off of here and put on here so the case fits on there. The primers, as you can see, are in this, so you can feed them. There's one fit into the chamber. I just push it and you can feel it seating into there. Boom, done. And you look and there's the primer seated perfectly into the bottom of the case. Ready to put in powder and go to the next step. You can see that I've got my reloading manual out, and I've got it turned to the page for 6mm Remington. This is a very valuable page. This very first page, it shows me the overall dimensions of a good case, so I can measure it with my caliper and make sure I've got the right dimensions. I've measured it and it's spot on. If it wasn't spot on, I'd use my trimmer and trim it down to the right length. Over here is the powders that I could use. for the bullet weights I've selected. Now I'm going with a 95 grain nozzler ballistic tip, and with that it says Reloader 17 with 44.5 grains. Gives me almost max velocity, still gives me in a good pressure range, and should give me a good setup. I've tested that load and it works really good out of my gun. But you find all of that in the manual, the size of the case, everything, and you can trim it and make that case prep just like you want to, and then you can see the available loads for the different powders and bullet weights. Okay, so now okay guys, got the case primed, resized. The next step is putting powder in it. Pretty straightforward. I've got a little holder here that holds the cases. I put my funnel on the top. I take my tray out of my measurer. I've got this set so it dispenses about the right amount. You never are exact. So I dispense the amount of powder, put it on my measure, and I've got this set for 44.5, and it's a little bit shy. So what I do is with my hand I drop in a little bit more powder until it gets right up to the exact amount. So I've got that set now for the exact amount. Got my measure, dump my powder in, and I have got one charged, ready to put the bullet in. So now we're going to go to the last step, which is the hardest, and that is the seeding of this die. This die does a couple things. It bullet seeds it with this device, and then it also can put a crimp on. If you want to, you can crimp the top of the bullet. Now in a bolt action, with these big hunting rounds, I never crimp the top, but you can. And you can over crimp the top, so you got to do this just right. With my 223, my semi-automatic AR-15s, I do put a little bit of a crimp on, but with this one, I'm not doing a crimp. So I'm going to put you on hold and then go to the next, back to this step. All right guys, next step, putting this die on and getting it to the right depth to seed the bullet the depth I want. So the first thing I do, if I got my shell holder back on, I put the case back in, I bring this all the way down, and you can see it's not hitting because I've got this just sitting here. I screw this down now with the case in there until it just touches. That's when my seeder, right there, my seeder is now touching the top of the case, and the crimping portion is just touching. If I go below that now, it's going to put a crimp on it. I don't want a crimp. So I'm backing it out about a half of a turn. It's not rocket science. And putting the clamp down. So I've got that set up. I'm going to tighten it a little bit now. Now with that, I can now screw this in and have that set up always. And once I get this set up once, you know, you can clamp that on too. Now I'm loosening the bullet seating portion of this so I can adjust my bullet seeder. Okay, I'm grabbing a bullet, which in this case is my Nosler ballistic tip. Getting out my calipers, because I know exactly how long I want this because I've looked at my manual and I've determined the seating depth with my rifle. So we're not going to get into all that. I take my case that's charged, put it in. I'm going to put this in here, the bullet. I'm going to loosen this pretty much all the way so it doesn't do any seating right now. I'm going to push it in. And you can see the farther I go out, the less it seeds. And then just do a little bit of a seed right now to get it started. And you can see that bullet is obviously way too long. So I could measure it now, but there's no sense in it. I know it's way too long. I'm going to adjust it down a little bit, get where I can see that it starts working it in there to somewhat of a decent depth. At this point, I'm going to start measuring. So I get out my caliper and I measure, and I can determine exactly what length it is and where I need to go. Then I can start adjusting this down and trying it till I get it the exact length that I need. So I'm going to skip to the end and show you where I've got that set up just by screwing this down now to the exact length that I want. Okay guys, it's Mike again. I've slowly adjusted this cedar down now until I'm getting the exact length of bullet I want. For this caliber, according to my book, the overall max length can be 2.825. For this gun I'm shooting, it seeds best when I have it at 2.815, and I'm very, very close to that. So I've tightened this and got that set just right. Now if I had a whole bunch lined up that are all charged and ready to go, I could just crank them real fast by putting a bullet in, cranking that down, getting that seated to the exact right depth, measure it, and there I've got a loaded round. So I hope that helps. That's a pretty quick tutorial on how to set up and reload. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to know more about our other things that we review, please go to ireviewgear.com.